Hi, I'm Dr. Ellen Hendrickson, and welcome to episode 33 of The Savvy Psychologist. I'll help you meet life's challenges with evidence-based research, a sympathetic ear, and zero judgment. We'll use the best of psychology to help you be happy, healthy, and most importantly, yourself. It's time for Back to School, a perfect time to showcase the topic suggested by listener Ty C. of New York City, grit. And whether we're talking about mettle, perseverance, doggedness, fortitude, or tenacity, it can all be boiled down to 4 letters, G-R-I-T. Grit is the ability to stay interested in and expend effort towards long-term goals. In short, it's the opposite of flakiness. It's also more important for kids' school achievement and success in life than talent, social skills, motivation, IQ, or practice. Indeed, a key component of success is the now famous 10,000 hours of practice rule, but grit is what compels someone to show up for 10,000 hours of practice in the first place. Dr. Angela Duckworth at the University of Pennsylvania is the originator of and best-known researcher of grit, which she defines as, quote, working strenuously towards challenges, maintaining effort and interest over years despite failures, adversity, and plateaus in progress. In short, grit predicts who will stay in for the long haul, who makes it through West Point's grueling summer training program, who finishes a punishing surgical residency program, who wins the National Spelling Bee, and who gets into the Ivy League, even with lower SAT scores than their peers. As a concept, grit is a bit of a chameleon because it's both a trait and a skill. In other words, grit appears to be an inborn part of personality, but that doesn't mean it's fixed. It's not just that persevering people persevere. Grit is simultaneously a skill that can be learned and practiced. Grit can be grown, even if the cutting edge of research is still figuring out exactly what works. But you don't have to be John Wayne or star in a Coen Brothers movie to show some grit. To that end, here are 8 tips to foster grit in a school-age child, or, for adults who aspire to grittiness, how to grow your own grit. Tip number 1, encourage practice. Even better, encourage challenging practice. Practice shouldn't rehash a skill where you're already competent. Aim for something one step above your current abilities. Tip number 2, praise effort, not outcome. When we praise a child with perfect or great job, their exertion dries up. There's nowhere left to go. So instead, praise effort. That must have taken a lot of work to be so great. Or you worked really hard on that. Tip number 3, teach that frustration and confusion are signs of progress. The thoughts, frustration means it's time to quit, or since I'm confused, I probably can't do it, should be replaced with getting frustrated is a normal part of learning something hard. Or if I'm confused, that means I'm figuring it out. Offer these reframes when you hear those first exasperated sighs or grumbles of frustration. Along the same lines, offer support, but don't swoop in to rescue kids at the first sign of struggle. As long as eventual success is within reach, allow your child to labor over those stubborn Legos or troublesome multiplication tables and reinforce the struggle as part of learning. Tip number 4, teach courage. Courage is closely aligned with grit. Courage isn't merely doing challenging things, it's being afraid and then digging in your heels and trying anyway. In other words, fear is a prerequisite to courage. To apply this, when your little ones say they're scared, tell them you can do scary things. Then, next time you need to submit that manuscript or get that mammogram, tell yourself the same. Tip number 5, encourage long-term commitment. The specific activity, piano, gymnastics, chess, doesn't matter so much as the effort. So let kids try out different activities until they find one they love and want to stick with. But by try out, I don't mean one lesson. Ask them to hang in there for the season or the semester. If, after that, the activity really isn't a match for them, don't re-register, but do ask them to try something else. Tip number 6, the growth mindset. This concept, originated by Dr. Carol Dweck of Stanford, has been all over popular psychological science, but it bears repeating. In short, in a fixed mindset, Kids believe their intelligence or abilities are set traits that render them successes or failures regardless of effort. However, in a growth mindset, kids learn that their intelligence or abilities can be developed through, you guessed it, gritty hard work and perseverance. So teach kids that the brain is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Initial failures and struggles are just the brain pumping iron on the way to success. Tip number 7, use visual reminders to encourage delay of gratification and perseverance. For example, for little kids saving for a big purchase, ditch the piggy bank and save coins in a clear jar so they can see their progress. For kids trying to change a habit or to encourage practice, use a visual token system. For example, they get a marble in a jar every time they practice piano or for every day they don't bite their nails. When the jar is full, they get a previously agreed on reward, as well as the satisfaction of a job well done. Tip number 8, grit won't apply to every situation. Kids will not be particularly gritty at something they hate. So don't overstate grit as the cure for hating algebra or hating sports. Grit is about hanging in there for the passion, not about you're going to do it and you're going to like it. Passion increases grit, but grit allows kids to pursue their passion. If The Savvy Psychologist is useful to you, please show your appreciation by subscribing to the podcast, liking on Facebook, adding me to your Google Plus circles, or emailing a link to someone important in your life. And also, for a double dose of The Savvy Psychologist this week, head on over to the Grammar Girl podcast. Together, we took a peek inside the brains of writers of fiction, learned how the brains of expert and novice writers differ, and shared the one-word tip for how to be a better writer. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Ellen Hendrickson, and that is all for this week. A transcript of the podcast and references for the studies I mentioned are always available on quickanddirtytips.com/savvy-psychologist. And of course, The Savvy Psychologist is strictly for informational purposes and doesn't substitute for psychiatric care or psychotherapy by a licensed professional. Thanks for listening, and see you next week for a happier, healthier mind.